Welcome to ZOOMERTIMES TV. And here's your host, Anita Finley.
We're very proud to have someone who really knows all about the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, because I really don't know about them, but we're very lucky to have the director, Eric Bustillo, who has been with them for many years, and it's a very complex job. He has a lot of responsibility, as it says here. It's actually, and you can tell us all the places that you have to take care of. I don't know how you do all this, but first let's start off with actually what is the U.S. Let's talk about what, not only your position, but what is the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission all about?
So, first of all, Anita, thank you very much for the invitation to speak to you as well as your listeners. So the Securities and Exchange Commission is an independent agency of the federal government whose mission, among other things, is to protect investors and enforce the federal securities laws. We regulate the financial markets. And so, when you're talking about companies offering, securities to the public, to investors, that's what we regulate under the federal securities laws. The federal securities laws are basically, premised on the concept of full disclosure. And by that, I mean that investors are entitled to receive full and fair and accurate information about a particular investment that they may be, solicited to, or that it's being offered to them to invest in. As you said, I head the Miami regional office of the United States Securities and Exchange Commission. There's 11 regional offices across the country. Out of the Miami regional office, we cover the states of Louisiana, Mississippi, the state of Florida. We also cover Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. And specifically out of my office, we have both an examination program where I have, in essence, examiners, auditors, who go out and do examinations of members of the industry, broker-dealers, investment advisors, investment companies, as well as an enforcement program. And those are the folks that basically investigate violations of the federal securities laws. And to the extent that we find that people and companies or companies have violated the federal securities laws, then we may very well bring enforcement action against those individuals and those companies, once authorized by the commission to do so. And again, that's all with the key premise of protecting investors and protecting the integrity of our financial markets.
Thank goodness you're there. And I know it must not be an easy job. And I was just thinking as you were talking, sometimes we have financial advisors who advertise with us. And when it comes to doing a radio show, they hesitate. Isn't that interesting? Why do you think that's true?
That is an interesting question. I mean, if they're legitimate and registered and do what they're supposed to do and act in the best interest of their clients, there shouldn't be any issues in them coming and talking to you and your listeners about what they do and the types of the work and the services they provide to investors. But again, our premise is we want to make sure that investors get the information that the law entitles them to get, so that when they're looking at investing in a particular product or investment that's offered to them, they can do so with full information, knowing well about the investment advisor, for example, or another individual who's offering them, making sure that they're registered with us, as they typically are required to do, making sure that they get all the information about the product that's being offered to them, financial statements, as well as other documents, making sure that those securities, as they typically are required to be, are registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. And what that does is that basically means that those companies, have provided the commission with extensive information about their company, their securities, to include things like financial statements, to include things like a description of what the company does, how it makes money, any risks attendant to the business of the company, who runs the company, who the officers and directors are, their backgrounds, their experience, all those things, all of which, in essence, as I said, serve as the basis for the federal securities laws, so that investors have all that information in front of them when they decide whether or not to invest in any particular type of security or other investment product that is subject to our jurisdiction under the federal securities laws.
Well, my guest is Eric Bustillo, who is the Regional Director of the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, and it's the Miami Regional Office. And I'm so glad that you're on now, because I have a lot of questions, actually. Now that I know that you have worked in this area for so long, I mean, in the field of the Securities Commission, did the internet make it more difficult for you?
So what the internet did, look, the internet is a great thing. It's been a great, a great development for all of us in our daily lives for a lot of different reasons. And if nothing else, the last year and a half, 2 years of the pandemic, have shown how useful the internet can be, right? I mean, you and I are now, having this show over the internet. I mean, a number of years ago, we would not have been able to do that. And so the internet is a great thing for a lot of different reasons. But like anything else in life, the internet has also been misused by those who are intent on defrauding investors, and have used it as a way to disseminate, false and misleading information with respect to investments that they offer. What the internet does is it gives anybody the ability to, put information out there to literally millions of people, frankly, not just within this country, but literally across the world. And so they have the ability to disseminate quickly false information about a particular investment product that they're trying to, get investors to put their monies in a very quick and efficient way. And so, one of the things that we always tell investors is that they need to be very careful. I mean, just because they're looking at a very fancy looking or professionally looking website, that doesn't necessarily mean that, that particular investment, that particular company or business is necessarily legitimate, right? I mean, we tend to, quickly think that because it has a very nice looking website and it looks very legitimate, that it is legitimate. And in fact, we need to be, we always tell investors they need to be very careful, because oftentimes, we find these very legitimately looking websites, and then it turns out that, the business of the company is really, nothing but a fraud, or the investment that they're offering through that website, turns out to be, a fraudulent investment. And so, they need to be careful. I mean, just because it looks very professional, just because it looks, very legitimate, that by itself should not be, everything that an investor does. In fact, the investor needs to do a lot more, ask a lot more questions.
That was going to be my next question to you. That's not easy for a person who's not been in this business. I mean, sure, even lawyers, I think, can get information and not know what to do with it. There's so many stocks out there, and now it seems like they're growing because, as you said, it's a global economy. How does one really check on all this?
Yeah, so we always suggest to investors that they do a number of things. And by the way, we have great resources at the SEC. We have a website that, if you would allow me to basically tell your listeners about, it's called investor.gov, G-O-V as in Victor. That is a website that the SEC has had for many years, and it's exclusively to provide investors just a plethora of information about investing, about savings, about what to ask when considering whether to invest in a particular product or company, other resources that are available to them that they at their disposal that they should consult on, as well as specific publications on specific types of investments so that they can educate themselves on those particular investments. In addition to that, we have a lot of releases and other announcements there about types of fraudulent investment products that we see through our investigations. And we basically put advisories on our website so that investors, can read about those. And, if they're being solicited to invest in something that sounds like, one of those products that we have determined to be fraudulent, then, that'll hopefully, raise a red flag with them, and they will do, even more due diligence to make sure that, the product is indeed legitimately. We have publications in there that specifically touch upon the types of questions that they should ask. Things like, they should ask, obviously things about whether the company's registered with us, whether, the individual who's actually selling them the investment or offering the investment to them is registered with the SEC, is properly licensed. And we show them in that website how they can check whether somebody's registered, whether they're properly licensed. When they do those checks, they can also find out whether that particular person has any sort of disciplinary history. And so, if that person has been involved, in fraud in the past or has had disciplinary issues, that would be reflected there. And obviously that would be something important for them to consider, as well as, other types of questions that they should ask before they decide to invest. And also publications with respect to red flags, things that should automatically raise a red flag with them. Like, for example, if somebody calls them and says, I can guarantee you a specific rate of return, that's a red flag, okay? Because pretty much every investment that anyone makes will have some sort of risk. There is no guaranteed investment. If other red flags, for example, if the person calling and soliciting the investor to invest is putting a lot of pressure on the investor, such as you need to invest right away because there's only so many of these left. If you don't invest now, you're going to miss a great opportunity. Again, that's another red flag that they may be dealing with somebody who's trying to basically defraud them. Again, and a whole host of other, areas where and issues that should quickly raise red flags with them and should cause them to either A, decide that that's not the type of investment that they should be investing in, or B, at a minimum, to ask a lot more questions before they ultimately decide to invest. As I said,
Eric, it's interesting you brought up the guarantee. I see that a lot on television commercials and all, that there's no, that you're going to be guaranteed a certain amount of money. So that's not legitimate, is it? Can they say that though?
Typically, it's hardly ever. I mean, in an investment in any type of security will by definition have some degree of risk. And so if anybody's guaranteeing any sort of profit amount or any sort of rate of return, more likely that is false. And more likely that's a fraud, basically. And that's something that should raise a huge red flag with any investor who's basically offered any such product with any such guarantee representations.
So if someone is interested in something, can they call your office and get help?
Absolutely. In fact, we have people in my office whose job it is to assist investors by helping them, by answering questions for them, by providing resource materials which will hopefully be useful to them. And if you would allow me, I'm happy to provide a phone number.
Please
they
do
can call.
That.
They can call us here in Miami at 305-982-6300, and I'll repeat that, 305-982-6300. They can also call a toll-free number that we have out of our headquarters office in Washington, D.C., and that's 1-800-732-0330. And again, that's 732-0330. And they can also, reach us by email at miami@sec.gov. Again, miami@sec.gov. And they can, reach out to us if they get solicited about a particular investment that they don't understand, that they have questions on, that they want to, understand whether, they filed all the proper documentation with the SEC. We can assist them with that. We can also point them to materials, as I said, that we have, which will help them understand different types of investments. Will help them, understand what kind of questions to ask, in educating themselves about a particular company or investment product. But again, the key message I want to get out there is you need to do this before you actually invest.
Right.
Never invest unless you truly understand what you're investing in, how it works, who the people involved are, what their background is, how you're likely to generate a return from that investment, making sure that you're going to be provided with account statements on some sort of periodic basis, whether it's on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis. Make sure that you understand how, for example, if you need to sell the investment, whether you have the ability to do that and get the money back, or at least get some money back. Obviously, the prices of securities fluctuate almost daily. And so, they go up, they go down. You may buy at a certain price, and, when you need to sell it, it may be higher, it may be lower. But you need to understand how all these things operate, because those are all key points that you need to be familiar with, so that you're making that decision as to whether to invest or not, with full information.
Well, I feel we're so fortunate to have you on our show. I mean, you are the mastermind of all this. I mean, you're actually telling us so many things. And of course, I am not an investor, so I'm not worried about myself, but I know a lot of our readers and a lot of our Zoomer Times TV watchers are. And especially here in South Florida, they have retirement money. And the SEC is pretty famous now. I don't even know if they know what the SEC stands for, the Securities and Exchange Commission, but to have the district executive here is really fabulous. So it's interesting, though. You said there were some other states, but I wondered how that all worked out. I mean, they're weird. Instead of having Georgia, which is right next to Florida, you have Mississippi. I wonder did you choose those states?
No, so I get that question asked every once in a while. And, believe it or not, that's all done by legal regulation. So it's not up to me to decide, how to sort of divide the country. And
I see.
and it's been divided that way, for quite a bit of time, basically.
I see.
I mean, I know we have an office in Atlanta. We have the Atlanta regional office, and one would think that that office would cover places like Louisiana and Mississippi, since they happen to be closer to it than us here in Miami. But as it is, they obviously they had to sort of divide the various states throughout the country into the 11 regional offices that we have across the country. And so it turned out that we here in Miami ended up with Louisiana, Mississippi, obviously the state of Florida, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Well, Eric, you started telling me, I think even before we got on the show, that you actually you're a lawyer, and I was going to pursue that. Did you grow up here in Miami?
So I've been in Miami since 1982, and I went to undergraduate. I got an undergraduate degree in business from the University of Miami, and then proceeded to go to law school also at the University of Miami. And so, and obviously decided to stay here in Miami, and I've been here since 1982. I actually learned about the work of the SEC while I was in law school. I had a chance to do an internship and just quickly learn, about the great work of the SEC and the great people that work here at the SEC. and decided that that was, what I wanted to pursue. And so, shortly after I got out of law school, I became a lawyer. I was lucky enough to get a job with the SEC here in Miami.
Ah,
Worked here for a little bit as an attorney doing investigative work and pursuing cases against people who had violated the federal securities laws and had defrauded investors. And then I had an opportunity to become a federal prosecutor, prosecuting criminal cases, many of which ended up being investment and securities fraud related cases. And then about almost 12 years ago, I had a chance to, and that was with the Department of Justice. And about 12 years ago, I had a chance to come back to head the office that I first started my career in as a line attorney. And obviously, it was a great professional and personal satisfaction for that offer, for the ability for me to come back and head the offer to result. And so as I said, I've been here in this position since the beginning of 2010.
do your parents live here in the Miami area?
I'm sorry?
Do your parents live here in the
Yes,
Miami
yes.
area?
In fact, they do live here in Miami. And so, and I have obviously other family members that live here in Miami as well. So I've been.
And that makes it nice because, you're a busy guy and all that, but let's get back to, before I don't want to run out of time, this cryptocurrency. I'm sure people are sitting on the edge of their seats and saying, Anita, why don't you ask him about that? So let's talk a little bit about, is this make-believe money?
So, obviously that's a complicated and expansive field. I mean, you have things like, cryptocurrencies, there's other digital assets. I mean, that's an area that's, due to the, advent of significant developments in technology, seems to keep expanding. And so, depending how, those assets are used, with investors, they may very well qualify as securities that we have jurisdiction over. And, obviously now over the last number of years, we have, brought a number of cases in the space involving, investments in digital assets and cryptocurrencies and things of that nature. And so I know that that's an area that, people hear about a lot because it's on the news almost daily. But like anything else, what I always tell investors is you need to be very careful of, what you're investing in. You need to make sure that you understand it. I mean, my number one rule when I tell investors about how to make sure that they are investing in the right thing is, if you've got a product that you don't understand, you probably should not be investing in. And so, if you're saving because let's say those are your retirement savings or other savings for which you have particular objectives, again, you need to make sure that you're investing those monies, that how you're investing those monies is consistent with the objectives for which you're saving and investing those monies.
Eric, that's great advice. And I just want to thank you so much. We just run out of time. So Eric Bustillo, who is the chief guy there at the SEC down here in Miami and some of the other states across the country, we appreciate your taking your time and we wish you a lot of good luck. And I think your main theme today was don't do anything casually, check it out, do research, call the SEC if you don't know, and save your money, go on a vacation and don't get into anything that isn't really correct. And you have a lot of ways now. The SEC is available. Thank you so much, Eric. And I wish you a very happy holiday, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And maybe we'll talk again.
Thank you, Anita. And again, some great holidays to you and your listeners as well. And I'm happy to come back at any time.
Thank you so much. Yes, I appreciate all your information.
Bye-bye.
Bye.